Hi, and welcome to Season 11 of My Words Our Journey, the podcast. I'm Monty, your host and author. This is Episode 1 of Less Than Perfect Endings. Let's begin the journey. Chapter 1, The Moment. It wasn't planned, not in the least. If he would have even taken a moment to consider what he was doing, it never would have come to, well, whatever it became. But it happened, and when it was over, there was one less arrogant son of a gun talking down to his significant other in public. If he treated someone like that out where others were watching, what would he do in the privacy of his home? There was no telling. The weapon? A $15 flex bar that had been in his passenger seat since he had bicep surgery. That had been 8 months before the killing. It could have been avoided. He only asked him to apologize to his significant other about the outburst. That was it. Simple. But he refused. He used a lot of profanity to get his point across. He was the man, and he'd do as he pleased. He had walked away, still not knowing how this one event would shape his future, maybe hers, for the better or worse. Never had he honked at a slow car in the fast lane, never flashed his brights at them, even though he thought he was justified, had patiently waited behind the person that argued with the cashier over a 50-cent coupon that expired the previous month, watched everyone on their phones instead of paying attention to, well, anything, driving, working, family dinners, a good conversation, all suffered due to the cell phone and everyone's head being buried in one. Had never said a word or left a note when someone parked where they shouldn't. Again, if he had, he felt he would have been justified. He just never did. Laziness, fear of retribution, cared but not that much. Take your pick. He had not argued with any of them. But at that moment in time, his mood, temperament, the way he spoke to her, the way she postured as if she was getting ready to be hit, and not for the first time, it was all as if the conditions had been met and he was finally going to do what he had felt. "Excuse me, sir. I'm not sure what the problem is. I don't need to know. But I do know this young lady seems frightened and embarrassed by the verbal beatdown you're giving her right here, right now in this parking lot. Maybe reconsider your approach. That's all I'm saying." After that, the floodgates had opened. He was called every negative name you could imagine. Christ our Lord and Savior's name had been used multiple times, along with all the other well-used and some less-used profanities. His mother was attacked a couple times, and then violence to his person if he didn't turn around and return to his own business. He returned to his vehicle, hoping that may de-escalate the situation. He watched, felt sorry for the woman, took a drink of his soda, and decided in that moment what he was going to do next. As the older model Ford turned left out of the parking lot, he shifted into first, put his foot into the pedal, and quickly made the same left just as the light turned red. If a police officer had been in the area, if he would have pulled him over for running the light, he would have lost his prey, gone back to his normal life, and lives would have been saved. But there was no police officer, so his sedan kept one car in between him and the man that had sealed his fate in the parking lot of a discount store. He would learn later, the spark that ignited the initial altercation between the man and the woman had been over a lottery ticket. The woman had won $70 on a scratcher. The man thought he somehow was entitled to at least half the money. So, a life was lost for $35, and the journey to follow would cost much more. Chapter 2, Justified. Passing the driveway, he could see the man get out of the truck and head for the side entrance, while the woman headed to the mailbox. He made a right. There was a small park. He pulled into the parking lot. It was late, and the neighborhood wasn't the greatest. Not the worst by any means, but certainly sketchy if he was being kind. The walk was short. The side door was locked, but one strong kick and it gave way. He had no idea if the man owned a gun, but he guessed he did, so he had to be quick. The owner of the home was trying to get out of his recliner when the first blow knocked his head back. It was a forceful blow. The intruder was a large man, 6'4" and full of muscles, like the song says. To his credit, he tried to stand, but the next impact took out his right knee, causing extreme pain, as well as loss of balance. The intruder stopped for a moment, noticing the woman standing between the kitchen and living room of the small home. She was crying, holding a gun. The gun was shaking in her left hand, pointed at the floor. This was her moment. She looked younger in the kitchen light. This distracted him for a moment. Then back to the gun. The man on the floor was determined to get in at least one good lick. He was crawling towards his assailant. He had a small bat he kept next to his chair in his right hand. He was bleeding now, so his hand was slippery, and he had a difficult time with the bat and movement. The two just weren't jiving, so he kept dropping the bat. The young woman's eyes were fixed. He hadn't seen her blink. He felt the blow to the back of his left leg at the same time that he heard the gunshot. He was knocked off balance, but not to the point that he fell. When taking stock of the situation, he did not think he had been wounded, but the woman now sat in one of the kitchen chairs, and behind him lay the man, small bat still in his hand, one bullet to his head. Quickly, he made his way to the door he had just kicked in minutes or two earlier. Then, "No, wait!" The woman had spoken as she was stepping over the man and made her way to the back room. Not 2 minutes later, she reappeared with a different shirt, a baseball cap, and a backpack that looked like it would be ready to explode if you tried to put one more sock in it. "Okay, let's go." "Excuse me," he said. "Well, you can't come in here, start a fight that I have to finish, and then just leave me. Let's go. We can figure it out on the road." Chapter 3. West. He drove for nearly 3 hours while she slept. They didn't know each other's names, but they were now on the run together. He had not gone back to his apartment. There wasn't much that he needed from there anyways. What he cherished the most, he kept close. His car, his one nice watch, a couple of hats that showed his team spirit, and that was about it. It would take a couple of weeks before anyone realized he was gone. He worked remotely, didn't socialize or go out really at all. His second bedroom was a gym, an office, and he utilized Instacart and DoorDash. You may think this is a sad existence, but not him. He loved his life. Well, that is for the most part. That moment, the one in which he decided he'd intervene in an unknown couple's business. He had been sitting in that parking lot because that's where his ex-girlfriend wanted to meet. Yes, ex-girlfriend. She had said she had had good news and wanted to share it. She had told him when and where to meet. He had thought they would be having dinner because one of their favorite Chinese restaurants was in the strip mall. Sadly, he had been wrong on so many levels. She had parked next to his car, and before he could get out, she jumped in the passenger seat. That's when she shared her good news. She had received her promotion at work. She was heading up her own team, but it was in another state. And while she liked him a lot, she didn't want to take on the new responsibility and have to worry about nurturing a long-distance relationship. So, she thought it'd be best if they were friends. If that sounds cold, well, it did to him too. As she was driving away, he realized their shared dog, Rex, was sitting in the passenger seat. He instantly tried calling her. He wanted to talk about Rex. He had paid for the dog after all, and most of the food, vet bills, toys, etc. His call went straight to voicemail, where he heard, "Hey, sorry, can't get to the phone right now. Road trip with Rex. New state, new job, new opportunities. Leave a message." She sounded so happy. New opportunities? What does she mean by that? His passenger began to stir, a long stretch, repositioning in the seat. "So, are you a serial killer or what? Why in God's name would you possibly get in a car with someone you think may be a serial killer? I mean, I guess I hadn't thought it all the way through." She was much younger than he originally thought in the parking lot. She was probably only a couple years younger than he was, and in this light, the ball cap, She certainly wasn't ugly. So what's your story? Where are we headed? Do you think Bill died? No story. Just a guy trying to do a good deed, and it went wrong. Headed away. And yes, you're either a really good shot, or Bill was very unlucky. There was a short pause while she thought that through. Then she started going through the satellite radio stations. Where west? Like Colorado? Nevada? Oh, I know, New Mexico. I hear it's nice there. She stopped on Ramble On by Led Zeppelin, then lightly punched him in the arm and said, "Hey, our song." She put the seat back. "Let me know when you want me to drive. And it wouldn't break my heart if you stopped somewhere for dinner. Maybe Mexican? I love Mexican." He had thought about where they would go, what he would do. He had some money. Didn't necessarily want her to know that. But he wasn't equipped for this. He wasn't sure how to avoid capture. At least she would be facing murder one, he believed. That's what do you think they called it? Him? Accessory? Maybe? Trespassing? Assault? He wasn't sure. He had never been west. Always wanted to. If they were smart and lucky, they may get to see a few of the national parks before they were caught. Or he could just drop her off and drive away. At the moment that thought crossed his mind, she said, "My name is Mallory. The man in the house was my stepdad. My mom left 4 days ago. Never came back. She couldn't take the abuse, I guess. But she sure could have told me. I'd have run with her. I have a little money. We could have gone somewhere." "Darn, shouldn't have told you I have money. Now in your mind will go some pretty dark places before you decide what you're going to do with me." Before she could keep talking, "My name is Drake. I have no intention of doing anything to you, and that includes taking your money. But if you want to buy me a late dinner, I like Mexican too." 3 miles later, Drake took the exit. There was a lot of lights and signs for gas stations, hotels, and restaurants. He felt pretty good about finding a Mexican establishment in the area. He looked away as she took some money from her backpack. Then he popped the trunk. "Let's put our stuff in the trunk. Harder to steal." Each cleaned up a bit in the nice restrooms, then met back at the hostess stand. "Table for two," Mallory said. She punched him in the arm again and said, "West. We go west? I bet we can get some good Mexican food." Chapter 4. Rest Area. If you've ever crossed the state of Tennessee, it's long. They were at their second rest area when they decided it'd be a good place to get a few hours of shut-eye. Dinner had been nice. Light conversation, nothing heavy. She seemed like a nice girl. Good head on her shoulders. Just put in a bad spot. Still, he hadn't allowed her to drive, so he was tired. Could use the rest. He moved his seat back, closed his eyes. Mallory had been listening to something on her headphones when he drifted off into a hard sleep. When the car shook and he heard the screams, Drake was dragged out of his sleep. He had no idea what was going on. A quick check, Mallory was gone, then another shaking out of the car. What the heck? He grabbed his flex bar, jumped out. There were two of them. They didn't seem affected by his presence. "Get back in the car. We'll leave her here for you when we're done," the taller of the two men said with a southern drawl and a little bit of a laugh. "Really?" Drake said. "That's awful nice of you. But to be honest, I barely know this woman. We just got caught up in killing a man earlier today. Take her, leave her. Really wouldn't matter to me." The two men laughed like they had just won the lottery. "But," Drake spoke, "but she promised me a nice dinner. Maybe a few frozen cocktails when we reach our destination. So..." Drake moved closer to the shorter of the two. He was built like a fire hydrant. Drake had seen his type. A little overconfident. Never tested, just watched a lot of YouTube videos. When he was within striking distance, he asked, "Are we going to play nice and all go our separate ways, or do you pick what's behind door number 2? The The taller of the two took a tighter grip on Mallory's arm and said, "Door number 2. Take out their legs. It was kind of his thing. Drake went low, missed a slow right hook, and connected with his own punch between the little fellow's legs. He made a noise that was undescribable. He fell backwards like a sack of potatoes. Drake stood, walked over, kicked him in the head for good measure, then looked at Mallory and said, "You got this one, or you want my help? Because if I help, well, I'm ordering the most expensive appetizer they have off the menu when we get where we're going." The tall one was sweating. He was in over his head. They all could feel it. Sport on the ground, the one out cold, he must have been the leader of the duo of wannabe bandits. Mallory looked at the green object in his hand. Her eyes told the story. "I have this one, thanks. That dinner is getting more expensive as we go along." Then, with all she had, she lowered her head, twisted her arm out of his grip, and then caught the flex bar out of the midair, gripped it tight, turned around, and with all force, she cracked him across the bridge of his nose. Blood everywhere from the broken nose. Then the crying. Mallory seemed unaffected. She followed his move of choice and then kicked the guy. She moved quickly, taking both their wallets and their keys. "Sorry, fellas. We really could have had a nice time together if you'd just asked nice." Then the couple were back in the car and heading down the ramp leading back to the interstate. She tossed the keys into the woods as they moved to the left lane. There was little to no traffic this time of night. A couple minutes later, she tossed the wallets, but kept the money inside. "Well, we got gas money for the next week or so. Those boys must have just gotten paid. Or they stole it. Yeah, or stole it. What's wrong with you?" "Nothing, just tired. Can you see how far to the next rest area?" Chapter 5. Base to Drake. The next rest area, almost 100 miles away. During that portion of the drive, Mallory talked about her real father's death, her mother's rebound marriage, then her mom going out for groceries and never coming back. Right when he thought it was the end, she went into how she'd always wanted to go west, take an adventure, be part of something exciting. Drake just drove. Something was bothering him. He didn't really know why. They had just met, right? He had no right to ask or even care. It was her life, her choices. He was struggling inside, though, frustrated with himself. She had stopped talking and was just looking at him. She must have asked a question. "Base to Drake. Base to Drake. Are you out there?" Then she laughed. "Yes, sorry. What was the question?" She laughed, hit his arm. I've forgotten at this point. "Then my plan worked," Drake said. "You're acting weird," she said more to herself than to him. Arms crossed, legs up on the seat, Mallory sang along with every song. Not most, every song. Finally, she broke the long silence. Was it what I said to the boys right before we left, them peeing in their pants? Because if that kind of talk is uncomfortable to you, I apologize. Drake tried to laugh. Came across fake. No, I mean, we're just getting to know each other. Just another piece of the puzzle that is Mallory. Humph, she replied. Then, so you think that I'm that kind of a girl? Drake, I have nothing to base the thought either way. Just your words. But again, we just met. I have no right to ask or judge. So are we good? Yeah, we're good. And let's stop there for today. I want to thank you for the support. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. If so, please tell a friend. Have a great day.